Former Vice President Mike Pence has now openly called for the end of Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid. Take a look.
We literally have a paralysis in Washington, D.C. that says we're never even going to talk about reforming 70% of the federal budget. That's what entitlements, Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, are all in that cash. And we simply are not going to restore the fiscal health of this nation by simply nibbling at the edges of the federal budget. I submit to you that we have to have a conversation about reforming entitlements in the days ahead. I think we can replace the New Deal programs with a better deal.
A better deal for whom? That's ultimately what it comes down to. But first, let me just tell you facts. Social Security and Medicare don't add to the debt. 100%. They're not, like the government does not borrow money to finance Social Security and Medicare. It is 100% paid for by taxes. That's payroll taxes. Look, you pay the payroll taxes 6.2%. Your employer also pays 6.2%. If you're self-employed, you pay, well, obviously double. Okay. You pay both your and your employer's share. So now you pay that up until the taxable maximum of about $160,200. After that, you don't pay anything. You hit the cap. So remember that, because that's going to be important later on. All right. Now, I say that because, again, that's true. These are facts. Mike Pence is lying to you. He is giving you the opposite of facts, which are lies. So that's very important. If you're trying to link the national debt with Social Security and Medicare, you are lying. They have nothing to do with each other. 100%. Now, secondly, Mike Pence, this is a discussion about, we got to do something about the debt. We got the debts and the deficit is so large. We got to do something. We got to shrink the federal government, right? That's what he says. Here's the thing, though. If you're so worried about debts and deficits, then you might remember Mike Pence being in favor of the Trump tax cuts. In fact, he was in the administration, he was vice president. And he loved the Trump tax cuts, which, by the way, in 2018, the CBO had estimated that the Trump tax cuts would cost about $2.3 trillion. Add $2.3 trillion to the national debt. Everything they said about, the tax cuts are going to pay for themselves. We're going to have massive economic growth. It's going to trickle down on all of us. No, it didn't. It didn't. It trickled right into the pockets of corporations, who, by the way, didn't even need that tax cut, as at the time they were sitting on $2.3 trillion in cash, liquidity, sitting on it. That was theirs. Multiple analysis, by the way, have shown that these tax cuts mainly benefited corporations and the rich far more than anyone else. Of course, big surprise. And that they had no impact on unemployment. Either way, they didn't create more jobs, didn't cost more jobs. It just didn't really do anything except for make rich people richer. Corporations sat on that $2.3 trillion worth of cash even before the tax cuts, and then afterwards, they decided to go on a spending spree. What did they buy? Well, they didn't buy anything. They didn't reinvest in their company. They didn't raise wages. They didn't hire more people. Instead, they did what? Stock buybacks. That's it. In 2018 alone, companies in the S&P 500 index did a combined $806 billion in stock buybacks, which, by the way, were put into law by Ronald Reagan. So if you're wondering, why are all these corporations buying back their own stocks? Who allowed that to happen? That was Ronald Reagan who allowed that to happen. And by the way, in 2022, corporations, this is again the S&P 500 index, did $1 trillion worth of stock buybacks. That did not do anything for you, but it did a lot for executives. You had larger executive bonuses, more dividends paid out to shareholders. And look, a report in 2018 by the Roosevelt Institute found that over the previous 15 years, this is from 2018 back, okay, firms spent 94% of their profits on what? Stock buybacks and dividends for shareholders. Again, not wages, not benefits. In fact, they were cutting wages or just not raising wages, or raising wages very, very slowly, firing people, not maintaining their infrastructure. Again, think about the baby formula shortage that right-wingers freaked out about. Abbott Pharmaceuticals, or I'm sorry, not pharmaceuticals, but the company Abbott that made baby formula, big factories. Their machines were not properly maintained. They were not properly updated. They did not have regulations. And by the way, they didn't use any of the money that they had to actually update and upgrade their machines, fix their machines. Babies had died as a result of tainted formula. And there was that aforementioned shortage afterwards because they had to, well, obviously they had to shut it down because their product was literally killing babies. They could have used the money that they had instead of buying stock buybacks, which they did. They could have actually fixed their machines, but they didn't. Now, another example of this, of how these tax cuts for corporations and what they did with the money that they saved instead of paying taxes, okay, and funding the government, Norfolk Southern, for example, okay, let's talk about that. So Norfolk Southern just had a hugely disastrous train derailment in Ohio. Toxic plume smoke everywhere. Okay, vinyl chloride. You have animals that are dying. You have people with health problems now, unsure of whether or not it's safe to be home. Norfolk Southern, guess what they did? Instead of upgrading their ECS to ECS braking systems, which are far superior to their Civil War era brake technology that they were using, they did stock buybacks. And again, stock buybacks exploded after Trump and Pence pushed the tax cuts and deregulated the rail industry. So now, Mike Pence, if you cared all about the debt, you might want to talk about the massive tax cuts, for the rich and corporations that you did. Because that's where the majority of the debt's coming from. Not from Social Security and Medicare, who have nothing to do with the national debt. And of course, you add in the fact that you have subsidies to corporations that allow them to pay nothing in taxes while we pay them from our tax money. Not to mention the $800 billion that goes annually to the military-industrial complex. Numerous amounts of spending that just handouts for corporations. But Pence is saying, no, the real problem, it's Social Security, it's Medicare, it's old people being able to retire. Yes, that's a real issue. No, it doesn't add a single penny to the debt. Here's the reason why Mike Pence is out here floating this idea. Along with, by the way, Rick Scott, Mike Lee, Ron Johnson, and all the other Republicans that were caught on camera previously saying that they wanted to cut and eliminate Social Security. You know what? It's because their donors don't want to pay taxes. Wall Street also wants a cut. So now, and by the way, that's where it ties into Mike Pence's plan, what he would like Americans to do instead of having Social Security.
I think in Social Security, you can keep all the promises that you made to seniors. You can, people that will retire within the next 20 years, no changes, but to give options to younger Americans to invest a portion of their Social Security in a private savings account and get a better deal, I think is an idea whose time will come.
Do you think there's an appetite for that?
Look, it's all about leadership, Sandra. I really believe that.
It's all about leadership. It's ironic he's talking about leadership because This guy's the one who's taking the marching orders from his gigantic donors. And by the way, they all do. They all do. So now, this private savings account that Pence is talking about. All right. So look, Mike Pence has been pushing for Social Security privatization since the Bush era, the Bush administration. So he's been on the record. Now, this would rely on you putting money into a private account and saving for retirement that way. Now, Pence says, oh, well, this will be fantastic for younger workers, you know. And by the way, we'll keep older workers for the next 20 years. So older workers, people who are retired, you're going to be okay. You're going to be okay, right? Yeah, sure. But younger people, you're going to have the option, yes, to, withdraw, opt out of Social Security and start, putting your own money into your own account. Now, of course, it's not the reality. Younger workers will not benefit. In fact, this plan screws over younger workers because they would end up having to pay twice for the next 20 years. One, to fund the benefits of current retirees under Social Security's pay-as-you-go system, and the second, to fund their own retirement accounts. In fact, the CBO concluded the cost of the transition to a privatized, pre-funded system would reduce the rate of return of today's young people as well, the transitional generation, to a level lower than the rate of return on Social Security. So that goes on for 20 years. Everybody except for current retirees gets shafted. And by the way, current retirees also get shafted because there's less money in the system to pay off benefits when, younger people also go and try to do their own system, right? So now, if you're not able to save enough under that, well, sad day for you, right? Of course. Now, the final irony here is that privatization, doing the transfer, would actually end up increasing the debt. Apparently, it would require trillions in additional borrowing to pay for current retirees because, well, that's what Pence had promised, right? We're going to keep all of our stuff, all of our, promises to retirees for the next 20 years, 100% of benefits. Well, that would require additional funding. So they'd have to, borrow more. And by the way, as more people opt out, that's going to mean less money for the Social Security system. Actually makes the trust fund run out faster. So look, his plan makes no sense. It's terrible for everybody except for rich people who don't want to pay any more in taxes. Again, right now, rich people are exempt from paying anything over $160,200. Once they pay that, they're done. They don't have to pay any more into Social Security. Now, the way to fix that is super simple. You just get rid of the cap. Get rid of the cap. And by the way, that's a plan that majority of Americans support. Because remember, majority of Americans support Social Security. And by the way, vast majority also supports expanding Social Security benefits. So now why is Pence going on the record with something that is extremely unpopular with the American people? Well, it's because Mike Pence is not appealing to you. His audience is not you, it's corporations. It's rich people. He's appealing to the donors that have the money. And specifically, I think he's appealing to the giant war chest that is right now being held by the Koch network, and they plan to use that against Donald Trump. There's a lot of speculation that Mike Pence will be entering the 2024 election. And so here's Pence on his knees saying, please, please, please give me the money. Just spend it on me. Trust me. I got this. Yes, make me president by showering me with cash, and I will deliver unto you the destruction of Social Security and Medicare. This is what it's all about.